My name is Matthew. For 15 years, my life, my entire identity, has been Golden Sun Vineyards. I'm not just an employee, I'm the head winemaker. I came here as a kid, a graduate with a theory-filled head and no practical skill. The founder, Mr. Arthur, found me in the cellars, tasting must from a fermentation tank. He didn't scold me. He just smiled, handed me a proper glass, and said, "Now, tell me what you really taste." He taught me everything. He was my mentor, my second father. "We don't sell wine, Matthew," he'd say, swirling a deep Cabernet in his glass. "Anyone can sell fermented grape juice. We sell legacy. We sell sunshine in a bottle. We sell a promise." But 6 months ago, the sun set on our vineyard. Mr. Arthur gathered the entire staff, all 50 of us, in the main hall. He looked frail. The strong, vital man I knew was gone, replaced by a ghost. He announced he was retiring, effective immediately, to fight a serious, private illness. His son, Richard, would be taking control. The collective gasp sucked the air from the room. Richard. Richard was everything his father was not. Cold, corporate, and ruthless. He hated the vineyard. He saw it as a dusty, inefficient, passion project, not a business. He saw our 100-year-old vines, our legacy, as an underperforming asset. The first few weeks were a bloodbath. Richard arrived with a team of slick consultants in suits that cost more than my car. They walked the grounds with clipboards, timing our barrel rotations, questioning our sustainable farming. They called it optimization. He fired Maria, our head of hospitality, who had been with Mr. Arthur for 30 years. Her crime? Redundant. He wanted to modernize. He wanted to rip out the ancient, low-yield vines that produced our best wine and replace them with cheap, high-yield varietals to pump out discount bottles for supermarkets. I was his main obstacle. I was the last of the old guard. I was the living memory of his father's promise, and he hated me for it. The betrayal happened on a Tuesday. It started with a manufactured crisis. Richard burst into my office, something he never did. "Matthew, I have a problem. Our main pesticide supplier just fell through. We have an infestation in Block G. It'll ruin the entire harvest. We need an emergency order, now." He threw an invoice on my desk. "This is a new supplier, Global Agricultural Supplies. They can have it here in 24 hours, but the wire transfer needs your signature. I've already approved it, but it needs the head winemaker's sign-off. Sign it. Now." He was frantic. I was focused on the harvest. I didn't question it. It was 30,000 euros. A reasonable sum for an emergency. I signed the form. "Thank God you caught this, Richard," I said. "Just doing my job," he replied, snatching the paper. 2 days later, his assistant called. "Richard needs you in the main boardroom. Immediately." I walked in. The room was cold. Richard was there. So was the new head of finance he'd hired. "Matthew," Richard said, not looking up from his laptop. "We have a problem. A discrepancy." He pushed the invoice across the table. My signature, clear as day. "We've run a check on Global Agricultural Supplies," Richard said, a small, cruel smile playing on his lips. "They don't exist. They're a shell company." I was confused. "What?" "But you said." "And the 30,000 euros, he continued, has been traced to an offshore account. An account, that just so happens to be linked to you." My blood ran cold. My stomach dropped. That's impossible. That's a lie. You gave me that invoice." "Did I? Or did you, the man with full control over all agricultural purchasing, create a fake supplier and try to embezzle 30,000 euros, thinking no one would notice?" He stood up. This is a profound disappointment. Stealing from your own mentor's company, from my sick father. You're finished, Matthew. You're fired for fraud. Security will see you out. I was stunned. I couldn't speak. The head of finance wouldn't even look at me. It was a setup. A perfect, brutal trap. 2 security guards, men I'd known for a decade, walked in. "Mr. Reyes, please." They couldn't meet my eyes. I was escorted out of the building I had helped build, walked past the staff who stared in shocked silence. My mentor was sick. His son was a thief. And I was the scapegoat. Richard caught me at the main door. He tossed a thick, formal envelope at my feet. It hit the stone floor with a dull slap. "Your official termination letter," he sneered. "And a restraining order. Don't even think about coming back. Clean out your locker. You have 5 minutes." I sat in my car in the parking lot for an hour, just numb. My career. My life. My reputation. All of it, gone, destroyed by a man who saw legacy as a line item. Finally, I picked up the envelope. I tore it open. Inside was the cold, legal letter, accusing me of gross embezzlement and criminal malfeasance. "Clean out your desk. You are fired." I pulled out the letter. And underneath it, something else. Something that shouldn't have been there. A small, folded piece of paper. It wasn't office paper. It was Mr. Arthur's personal, heavy, cream-colored linen note card. The kind he wrote his private tasting notes on. The kind I hadn't seen in 6 months. My hands were shaking. I unfolded it. The handwriting was unmistakable. Not the shaky script of a sick man, but the strong, clear, confident hand I knew so well. It said, "Play along. He's arrogant, not smart. Be at the investors' meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. I knew he would do this. My heart hammered against my ribs. He knew. He knew Richard would frame me. The sickness, was it all a lie? The next morning, I put on my best suit. I felt like I was walking into a war. I walked right past the new receptionist, who barely looked up, and straight to the executive boardroom. I opened the doors. The room was packed. Serious investors. The entire board. Richard was at the front, a huge projector screen behind him, filled with charts about maximizing profits. When he saw me, his face went from polished charisma to pure, purple rage. "What in the hell are you doing here?" he shouted. "I fired you. You're trespassing. Security. Get this thief out of my meeting." "He is not a thief, Richard." The voice was deep. It was powerful. It boomed from the back of the room. Every head turned. And there he was. Mr. Arthur. He wasn't in a wheelchair. He wasn't frail. He was standing tall, in his favorite tweed jacket, his eyes like steel. The entire room gasped. Richard looked like he'd seen a ghost. "Father. But, your illness. Your treatments." "My illness," Mr. Arthur said, walking slowly to the head of the table, "was a lie. A performance. A test. I needed to see what you would do, my son, if you thought I was gone. I needed to see if you had the soul of a winemaker, or the greed of a vulture." He turned to the investors. "My son is currently presenting you with a plan to optimize our brand. It involves selling off half of our historic vineyards, the very land that makes our wine unique, to a massive corporation, correct?" The investors nodded, confused. "What he didn't tell you," Mr. Arthur continued, "is why he so desperately needed Matthew out of the way. He didn't tell you about this." He threw an invoice on the projector. It was the one I'd signed. "This," Mr. Arthur said, "is the invoice Richard used to frame Matthew. He claimed it was a shell company. He was right. It is. Father, this proves. Richard began. It proves your fraud, Richard. Mr. Arthur roared. You were so arrogant, so eager to frame an innocent man, that you used the wrong invoice. You see, this payment wasn't to Global Agricultural Supplies. That was the fake charge you told finance about. This is the real invoice. The one I've been looking for. He tapped the screen. The supplier name was Global Wines Incorporated. Who are they? An investor asked. They are the cheapest, most vulgar rebranding company in Europe, Mr. Arthur said. Richard here was paying them a consulting fee to design plastic bottles and cheap, sugary blends. He wasn't just selling the land. He was planning to destroy the name. He was going to sell cheap swill in supermarkets under the Golden Sun label, after he'd sold our soul. The invoice was real. Richard had given me the one piece of proof of his plan to destroy the legacy. He had framed me, to cover his own treason. Father, you can't prove that. Richard yelled, panicked. Oh, yes I can, Mr. Arthur said. Because my team has been monitoring your IP. The payment was approved from your terminal, Richard, an hour before you ever gave it to Matthew. He turned to the board. Richard is removed from the board and from this company, effective immediately. He's fired. And he will be hearing from our lawyers. Richard, pale and shaking, stormed out of the room, defeated. The investors were in an uproar. Mr. Arthur raised his hand. Calm down. The company is secure. The legacy is safe. He looked at me. I was still standing by the door, trying to process what had just happened. Mr. Arthur, I said, my voice shaky. I don't understand. Why me? Why all this? He walked over and put his hand on my shoulder. Because I knew Richard would see loyalty as a threat. He would try to get rid of the only person left who actually understood the value of this place, not just the price. It was a test, Matthew. A test of loyalty for you, and a test of character for him. You passed. He failed. Miserably. He smiled, a true, warm smile. The company needs a new president of operations. Someone who understands the legacy. Someone who knows the difference between a business and a passion. He motioned to the empty chair at the head of the table. The job is yours, Matthew, if you want it.